for number 1, this is taking us back to solving. You needed to distribute. You have 5x minus x plus 18 equals 6 minus 2x minus 30. Then see if you can combine your like terms on the same side. So 5x minus x will give us 4x. 6 minus 30 would give us negative 24. Then you could start to move and solve, whether you do that simultaneously or step by step, does not matter. So we could add 2x and subtract 18 to get 6x equals negative 42. And then divide both sides by 6. So that x equals negative 7. Remember that you can also check yourself in Desmos, put in the entire thing, and it should draw a vertical line where your solution is. You could also put in each side and see if they give you the same thing. Questions on questions on that one? For number 5, this is going back to our solving again, but absolute value. So we need to isolate the absolute value bars first. After you've isolated it, you should see that it equals a negative, and it shouldn't. You can't solve it if it equals a negative, so at this point it should be no solution. So if you have any other work after that, erase everything else and just put no solution. Questions on that? As I mentioned earlier, I passed out progress reports. On the front page is your marking period 2 grade. The last page is your year grade. So, a couple things with that. Let's start with marking period 2. 1, I am not putting anything else in marking period 2 grades unless you retake Khan Academy, do missing Khan Academy, or you retake tests. So that is going to be the grade that gets printed on your report card unless you do those 3 things. So keep that in mind. The last day to do retake work / turn in missing Khan Academies is the 26th. The last day of the quarter is the 27th, so I'm being very generous with giving you until almost the last day to do that. Do not wait until that last day. You'll have flex days, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Between then, as well as you have time before or after school. Come see me as soon as possible to get that work done, to get those retakes done, so that you're not waiting until the very last day. Questions on any of that stuff? Bless you. Okay. With your year grade, if you're looking at that and it is currently not passing, you need to do either both of what I'm about to say or one and possibly the other. You need to either make sure your marking period 2 grade is passing or better so that you don't have to work as hard for the next 2 marking periods to bring that grade up so that you can pass this class. Or you'll need to work hard to make sure that the next 2 marking period grades are good enough for you to pass this class. So keep that in mind moving forward. Questions on that? Okay. Look at your calendar so we can talk about some dates. Notice that there are only 2 Khan Academy quiz dates, this week and next week. Those are it. there will be 5 Khan Academy quizzes for this entire unit. So make sure you do those on time, get them done. The 18th will be one of your flex days before the quarter ends. Notice that it also says finish graphing notes. So my plan is we might spend most of that Friday before doing as much as we can so we have less to do when we come back that Wednesday. That way you have more time for flex, but we have to finish those notes before you can have your flex day. So that time frame will be shorter than your second flex day. The second flex day is an actual flex day, yes, but it's after the quarter ends. So that'll be more geared towards your Unit 6 stuff if you need to start retaking that and things like that. So I would say because of those things, come see me before, after school, come get that done as soon as possible. And then your quiz is going to be on the 24th and your test on the 26th unless we have snow days or code oranges in between any of those. Questions on any of that? All right. So I'm going to have you start writing definitions, and then we'll see how much time you have after that. So this unit that we're going to start, some of it may look or feel familiar to you because it's about slope and graphing, some of which you've done in middle school, some of which you have not. So some will seem new, some will not. So on that first page, you can go ahead and start writing these down. I'll read them out as well. A rate of change is a ratio that shows how one variable changes with respect to another. On a linear graph, or on a graph that is just a line, this is called the slope. Slope is written as a ratio of the vertical change, the rise, to the horizontal change, the run, between any 2 points on a line. This remains constant for any 2 points on the same line. So that means between point A and point B, whatever that slope is should be the same for point B and C, C and D, and so on and so forth, if that makes sense. Slope is written as a fraction in simplest form, always. And the variable for slope is m. Anyone remember some of this stuff from middle school? There are 4 different types of slope. So I want you to draw these x and y axes and then these words, positive, negative, 0, and undefined. And then after you have all of those written down, we will come back from lunch and start defining and doing examples and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to show you what these types of slope would look like, as well as how we can look at them direction-wise. So for a positive slope, it's going to look something like this. Where if you are looking at this left to right, and we're looking at our rise first over our run, this is going up and to the right. So looking at it left to right, it's going up and then to the right. But you can also look at it the opposite way. So if you're looking right to left, it's going down and then to the left. Down and left are both negative directions in this. Up and right are then positive. And if we have a negative over a negative, that still becomes a positive. So we can look at it both ways. It does not matter. Negative then looks like this, where if we're reading it left to right, we're going down and then to the right. Or opposite, right to left, we're going up and then to the left. Because in both sets of direction, you're only using one negative, that's what makes it negative. If you have two negatives, the down and left, then it would make it a positive, so we don't want that. For 0, you're going to have a straight horizontal line. That was somewhat straightforward. Where we don't have a vertical change at all, so we can say that's 0, over some horizontal change. But 0 divided by anything is what? 0. And then undefined is the opposite, where we have a straight vertical line somewhere. That was kind of perfect. Where we now have a vertical change, but don't have a horizontal change. And I know we've done this before, but let's do it again. Pick a number, divide it by 0. So some number divided by 0. What happens? Do that on your calculator. Say that again. It says error. We can't divide by 0, or at least not in this class, so we get undefined. Off to the side in this box, finding slope on a graph, I want you to write this. This might help you distinguish the difference between the two, the horizontal and the vertical. H-O-Y V-U-X. Try to leave some space in between there because we're going to define them. So $4 is something we're going to use here and the next couple of units. Some units after that, so we'll be using this for a while. This stands for horizontal lines have 0 slope and are y equals. And some of these things will make more sense when we get into like the graphing pieces and whatnot. And then bucks is the opposite. Vertical lines have undefined slope and are x equals. So that would be one way to determine your slope. If you know it's horizontal or vertical, you can think about the letters, hoi, bucks. So horizontal, it has to be a 0 slope. Vertical, it has to be an undefined slope. Okay. Then we're going to do these 4 examples and then go on to the next page. So starting with number 1. Now, these graphs give you points on these graphs. Sometimes they won't, like Khan Academy might not. So if they don't, you have to find 2 points, at least 2 points on this line where this line crosses the grid lines in the background exactly. 2 points that this one does are these 2. And these are drawn on there already. And then you're looking for your rise, which is your y, and then your x, which is your, your run, which is your x. If you didn't write this down, make sure you do that. To keep them straight, I always say, think about like when you get up in the morning, usually you sit up before you get out of the bed, unless you're one of those people who roll out of bed. Usually you sit up, you rise before you get out, run. But you can think about it like that. Right? And then we just count. So after you have your 2 points, count your rise straight up or down first. Once you get the hang of this, you don't need to actually do this. I'm just showing you how I'm actually counting the units. So we're going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Make sure that you put your comma up. Okay, and then from there, how many over? If you can't see this, it says 7 with an up arrow. So then because our slope needs to be written in a fraction form, I write it with the arrows first. And again, this is not something you need to do. Just if it helps you see the directions, do it. Since we have an up and a right, and those are both positive directions, our slope is going to be positive 7/4. Get in the habit of writing m equals or equals m, so we know that m is the variable we're using. Questions on that before I show you one other thing on this example? So if you want to do this always going one set of directions, that's fine. So we went up and then to the right, looking at this left to right. But if you see this the other way, let's say you see this point first and you want to go down to this point, that's also fine. You would still do your rise, but in this case, you can't go up, you have to go down. So we'd be going down 7 and to the left 4. So if I did this with my arrows, I'd have 7 down, 4 to the left. The down and the left would both give me negative things. So I'd have negative 7 over negative 4. But because we have 2 negatives, it would end up being a positive. So no matter how you look at it, you should get the same thing as long as you count correctly. Questions on that? So for number 2, again, there are points already for you, but if you didn't see those, you would just find other points that cross the grid lines exactly. Count our rise. How far did we go down? How far did we go down? 3. And then from here over to the point, how far did we go over? What is our rise? Nature? 9.
Okay.
So that would give us positive 3 over negative 9, which would simplify to be what? Nature. Negative 1/3. Because this simplified, and the last one didn't simplify, which is why we didn't do that there, but because this simplified, this means every time I go down 1 and to the right 3, there should be another point. So if I start at the beginning and I go down 1 and to the right 3, I end up at another point that crosses the grid lines exactly. Down 1 and right 3 again, and then down 1 and right 3, I end up at the original point. So that's what your slope means, that it's constant everywhere. Okay. Really quickly, I'm going to show you the opposite way, but I'm going to use the shorter of the two. So let's say I started here and I went up 1 and to the left 3. Then we'd have 1 over negative 3 or negative 1 over 3. That where you put that negative, doesn't really matter as long as at the end it's in your numerator. But you get the same thing either way. Questions on 1 or 2? when you get questions like 3 or 4, once you have got it in your mind that horizontal will be 0 and vertical will be undefined, you don't have to do the counting process I'm going to show you. You could just say, this is horizontal, so 0, m equals 0. That's vertical, so m equals undefined. But just to double check yourself, you could still do this counting process. So I do not have a rise. I'm given points, but because it's horizontal, there are really more points than what are given. So you could use any of those two, does not matter. But if you just use the ones that are given, I'm moving to the right 4. But 0 divided by anything is still 0. So my slope, no matter what, is going to be m equals 0, or 0 equals m. From your 4 bucks, you could say the same thing. And then, same thing for 4. From your 4 bucks, this is a vertical line. So this should be an undefined slope, and you can write it out. Put UND, UNDEF, any of those. But you could also do the counting process as well. So here, we're going down 5, but we're not moving left or right. We can't divide by 0, so we'd end up with something that's undefined. Questions on either of those, 3 or 4? Look at the next page. Find any questions you want to see, go over, have questions about. Maybe you already started and want to check. Any on that page? If not, I'm going to ask you to find the slope of these 4. And these numbers don't match these numbers, but just remember them. What is the slope of number 7? 0. What is the slope of number 10? Undefined. These you'll have to count. What is the slope of number 5? So here we're going down and then to the right. So rise over 1. 3 over 1, but it's negative, and simplify it. -3. Okay, and then find the slope of number 6. Positive 4 over 5. Are there any others on that page we want to see, go over, check? If not, go on to the next page. Okay. Write in the slope formula. How many of us remember seeing or using the slope formula before? So it says some of us may, some of us may not, and that's okay. Alright, so the slope formula is used to find the slope between 2 points, x1, y1, x2, y2. And there's your formula. This is basically doing what we just did, but not on a graph, algebraically. Couple things about this formula. One, your y's should always be in your numerator. Your y's are your y's, so it makes sense. Your x is always in your denominator, so if you flip these, the x's and the y's, you're going to get the wrong answer. The other thing, let's say you forget which one goes first, and the second one, the first one, let's say you forget. If you switch these two, that's fine if you also switch these two. So if you put y1 first instead of y2, if you also put x1 first in the denominator, then you're fine. If you don't, you're going to end up with a positive when you should have been negative, or vice versa. So just be careful with that. Alright, and then always simplify. So let's do a couple of these. Starting with number 1, I always label them just so it helps me figure out which one is which. So these are ordered pairs x, y, but there's 2 of them. So label the first one x1, y1, and then x2, y2. And then whether you put m equals and then do the formula and then write m equals again for your final answer, or just write your formula and write m equals at the end, doesn't matter. So let's use our formula. Excuse me, y2 is a 3. We're always subtracting no matter what. y1 is 1, all over x2, which is 4. Again, always subtracting. And then x1 is 1. Then at that point, you just subtract your numerator, subtract your denominator, and simplify if needed. So 3 minus 1 would give us 2, 4 minus 1, 3. Can we simplify this? No, so that would be our slope. Questions on that one? Let's do another, number 2. Same thing. You do not need to label them, but if it helps you, definitely keep doing that. So we have negative 2 minus 4 all over 10 minus a negative 2. Be careful there because we're already subtracting and it was negative, so you need both. Or you could change it to a plus because minus minus makes a plus. But if you start changing it to a plus, only do that when you see 2 negatives. Don't automatically just start changing everything to a plus. Then subtract. Negative 2 minus 4, negative 6, and 10 minus a negative 2. 12. Can this be simplified? Yes, to what? Negative 1/2, yes. In example 5 and 6, these are the only types of examples that you do not need to show work for, if you remember this. If you see that you have the same y values, so let's say we didn't remember and we started doing it, so I'm going to actually do it, but then I'm going to show you why you don't have to show it. So we would have 9 minus 9 over 3 minus 5. What's going to happen in our numerator? They're going to cancel out, become 0. And anything over, or anything, sorry, 0 divided by anything is 0. So if you see that your y values are the same, your slope is going to be 0 no matter what. So if you see that, you don't have to show this work. You can just say y values are the same, m equals 0. Same for number 6. if you see your x values are the same, that means they would cancel out in your denominator. We would be dividing by 0, so our slope would be undefined. But you either have to show me that those are the same or tell me that they're the same, and that's how you know that, or actually do the work. Doing the work won't hurt you because then you could double check. Questions on that? And there are some ones down here with fractions. If that's not enough space for you, grab more paper so that way you have more space to write it. We're going to do 7 and 9. Even though it looks more complex, the process is still the same. There's just more things going on. So, I'm still going to label these x1, y1, x2, y2. Still going to put them in the formula the same way. So 3/4 minus 2/5 all over 1/3 minus 2/5. If you have the same common denominator, you're going to subtract those, just the numerators. If you don't, you'll have to find common denominators. So in our numerator, we have to find common denominators. And before you remind me to tell you what we're doing for today. In the denominator, we can just subtract these two because they have the same common denominator. So, new fractions in our numerator would be 15 over 20 and 8 over 20. Whether you just focus on the numerator, do both at the same time, doesn't matter. So you could go ahead and subtract these two to get negative 1/3, and then come back to that. We'll deal with it here in a bit. Subtract your numerator fractions together. So we have 7/20. And then at this point, you could either do this by hand or do it in your calculator. I'm going to show you how to do both. We don't like fractions within fractions. So to get rid of that, we're going to take this denominator, flip it, and multiply it to both pieces. Our denominator will completely cancel, just become 1. And then just multiply across. So negative 21 over 20 would be our final slope. In your calculator, if you wanted to do this, you would need to do the following. So go alpha y equals, grab your fraction. In your numerator, you're going to do it again. Alpha y equals, grab your fraction. Then in the very denominator of the original, so all the way down here, do it one more time. Alpha y equals, grab your fraction. So you should see that there's a fraction, the fraction bar, and then a fraction. And you would put everything in. So 7 over 20 and negative 1 over 3. And it did the exact same thing we just did. So whether you do that part by hand or in the calculator does not matter. If you put the fraction pieces in incorrectly, you're going to get a wrong answer. So just be careful with that. Do we have any questions on this? Yes. This, you said can you or would you? Oh, just you could check to see if it needs to be simplified. If you put it in here, it's going to give you a simplified version. But if you just put it in like this, it'll tell you if it's simplified or not. Let's do one more. I think this is number 9. These ones have mixed numbers instead of improper fractions. You need improper fractions before you can solve this. Whether you convert these by hand or in a calculator does not matter. If by hand you're multiplying, I forget what this is called, the bigger number in the denominator, and then adding your numerator. We have 6 plus 2, so 8. Your denominator stays the same. And then 8 plus 1 is 9. In your calculator, I'm just going to do one of them so you see what it looks like. Go into alpha y equals, choose the second one. And then press enter. And it'll change it to an improper fraction. Now we can do the same process as before. Label them if you need to. So we have 9 over 2 minus 1. 3 minus 8 over 3. You'll have to get common denominators for both. Remember that all whole numbers are really over 1. So this would be multiplying by 3 and multiplying by 2. So we have 9 over 2 minus 2 over 2. And 9 over 3 minus 8 over 3. What would our two fractions be? What would our numerator become? Say it louder. Just say it louder. 7 over 2. Yeah, you could say the denominator. Okay. Then at that point you can, I'm sorry, that should be a 2, not a 3. Either put it in your calculator or take the bottom, flip it, multiply it. What would our final fraction be? Questions on that? Before I let you guys practice, and I'm going to explain what you're practicing on. On that same page, are there any other questions you want to see, go over, have questions about? Camera. 2, 4, 4. 4, sorry, because we did 2. 4 over 2, yes. Any others? Okay. Number 4, label them if you need to. You have 4 minus 0 over negative 2 minus 10. 4 minus 0 would give us 4. Negative 2 minus 10 would give us negative 12. What would that simplify to be? Yeah. Negative 1. Annabelle, for you. If you have other questions, we'll go back to this. But your practice is going to be 2 things. 1, there are 3 Khan Academy quizzes that are due on Friday. Don't worry about the slope-intercept intro until next class. It'll make more sense after we do that. So slope from graph and slope from 2 points, the exact 2 things we were just doing. So do those first. Then, on Canvas, after you finish those 2, find the Unit 6 module, the Unit 6 graphing functions. Look for the additional practice, Unit 6. And then scroll towards the bottom. And either click on this link, or if you already have a Desmos account, you can go to it and use that join code. That has questions that will self-check, so like after you do it and do it right, it'll tell you whether you got it right or not. Do the Khan Academy first, then this. Let me know if you need help with any of those. So that's kind of what you're doing. Okay. Before you guys do that, were there any other questions we wanted to see go over? Okay. Khan Academy first, then do this. You guys can work together. Let me know if you need my help or have any questions. Hi, Annabelle. Have a good rest of your day.